I'd like to welcome one of my guests to the show, and I got a feeling this interview is going to – I'm not saying which show because I got a feeling we're going to air it on probably all of the shows, but my good friend Nathalie Richard. Oh, man, it has been a long time, Nathalie. How the hell are you doing?
It has been a minute, hasn't it? I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm all right, kind of like everybody else, trying to kind of figure out what's going on in the world today and what I'm doing now and what I'm doing next year. And I don't know.
Right.
I guess I'm in the States. You're in Canada. You actually almost got stuck in, where was it, like Aruba, right? Before this happened?
I was. Yeah, when everything hit the fan, when it was declared a pandemic and, they had all the travel advisories and everything, I was in Aruba. And initially, because I was there with my parents, and initially we said, okay, you know what, we're gonna stay here. It's really safe. The numbers are low. Like, we are distanced from everybody else. It's not a problem, And but then they started, everything with the Aruban government was changing. The Canadian government was changing. The airlines were changing. Everything was stopping, and so we finally said, okay, let's go home. And we ended up on the last rescue flight off the island back to Canada, and they didn't fly again until July. So this was March until July. And so, I mean, it would have been a great place to be stuck. I wouldn't have complained with that, but it was good to be home too.
Yeah, well, and you actually go down there quite a bit, right? Because I know, like, you're one of my favorite people to follow on Instagram because, like, you, like, I don't know, it's almost like something the Travel Channel would put out. Like, I swear, you are one of my favorite people on Instagram because you never know what's going to pop up. But you spend a lot of time down there normally, right?
I do, yeah. When I go down, it's usually for about a month, and sometimes, like last year, I was able to go down twice. I was lucky enough, but it is one of my favorite places. It's such a beautiful island, and, I'm not paid to say this or anything, but it's such a wonderful spot with the most beautiful beach, and once I started going down there, I realized that, it kind of spoiled me for everything else, and I've tried other islands, and I'm like, nope, Aruba's it for me. That's the top one. I'm going back. So we have timeshares down there and go down as often as we can.
Yeah, well, I guess it's actually it's kind of, and I think one thing we've learned through this pandemic too, and I promise we'll get to some rally talk here in a little bit, but one of the coolest things, I guess a positive, I don't want to say coolest things, one of the positives that's come out of this is I know, like, now within the digital space, we can all work remotely. And I think now, like, it's an amazing time in the world today where even before this happened, but you could go and because a lot of people know you from Rally, you do have a day job. But you can go and work remotely for weeks at a time, and I did that during this. I went to San Diego and sat on a beach for a week or 10 days, and was working on my laptop sitting in the sand, and I think it's kind of a cool time where we can actually go and do that and work remotely and we're not leaving anything behind where 20 years ago, I mean, you were chained to a desk and there was no working remote, right?
Exactly. And the thing is, so there's pros and cons to it. The great thing is, and like you say, I go to Aruba, as long as I can. It's not many jobs that you can say, okay, I'm going to pick up and go somewhere for a month and work from the beach, but like you say, because of technology, we can do that nowadays. So that's great. It gives me the flexibility, and my clients know, because I'm a financial planner. That's the day job you speak of. So my clients know that every year, this time of year, I'm always working remotely. So I'm still answering all my emails, and I'm still making phone calls, and I still have like Zoom meetings and webcasts and whatever, but I can't meet someone face to face and shake their hand, which we don't do now anyway, even though I'm back in my office. But the downside of it is that I'm always on. I'm never switched off, so my phone might ping at 7 p.m. and I know it's my work emails coming through, and I'm still checking them. I'm not necessarily answering them, but I'm still checking them. And I think, like, in the past 10 years, let's say, there's only maybe one time or two times that I was somewhere that was like a 12-hour time difference away, so I wasn't as connected. But it does give us that freedom and that flexibility, and I'll take it because I would rather have that than, like you said, be chained to a desk. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, there have been part of you kind of jonesing to get back down to Aruba just because of everything that's going on. You haven't been able to.
To get back down to where, sorry?
I said, part of you, I know you spend a lot of time down there. Is part of you like having the itch now that you've kind of been I don't want to say stuck in Canada because I love Canada. You love Canada. Obviously, you're from there. But has there been an itch to get back down there and knowing that, it's tougher to get down there now and everything going on? Like, you had an itch to really get back down there?
Well, it kind of sucked to have to cut our trip short, which we did by 3 weeks, So I'm lucky in the sense that I did get a bit of a taste of it in March, and had some time in the sun on the beach and got my vitamin D and all that jazz. That was great. And right now I'm planning to go down, next spring. I understand that those plans might change, but for now I'm okay. We had a great summer here in Nova Scotia. I'm not complaining about that at all. Yes, I would like to get back down on the beach, and I'm used to traveling a lot throughout the year, whether it's personal or work related, whatever. So, it'd be nice to get on a plane again and go through an airport again and all that jazz. But for now, I'm just kind of loving where I'm living and enjoying everything that Nova Scotia has to offer. So I'm okay for now.
All right. Well, let's switch gears, talk a little racing, because I want to actually go back, because I don't think a lot of people, they know the present day Nathalie Richard and all your accomplishments, but kind of how you got started in rally. And I want to get into that. But first off, I want to congratulate you. Obviously, going into the Canadian Motorsports Hall of Fame. I mean, that's what spurred me to kind of message you, and we hadn't talked in probably a year or two, but I was like, man, this is big, Nathalie. I mean, what an honor.
It is. It really is. I mean, it's really nice to be recognized. I mean, when we do everything that we do in motorsports or any sports, whatever, you don't do it for the recognition. You do it for other reasons, whatever. But then when the recognition comes later on, or when you have these honors, it's just, it's a feel good kind of thing, and it does definitely make me feel good, and it's nice to be recognized by the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame. That's great. It's something really nice. And on top of that, what I realized is that there was a local article here in Halifax, and it's not often that Halifax has done very much media at all on rally or myself or my brother or anything like that. And it had been quite a while. But then when this article came out to announce the induction, and so many people who are here, somebody that I might play soccer with or some of my clients or whatever, that they had no idea that I had this other side to me, this other life, and then they all see the article. Like yesterday I went on a hike and I bumped into two people separately, and they both said, "Oh, congratulations," So it kind of spurred this awakening, I guess, in my my community here in Halifax, and the people that I see all the time and I talk to all the time, but they just had no idea. So there's that whole other side of it too, which is kind of cool. It's nice to get congrats from your friends and your peers and your clients and whatever. So for sure, it's a great honor, and I'm joining a lot of cool people that are in the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame, so I'll take it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that leads me to another question. I know there was a period in your life, and we'll get into this in a minute, but you were running rallies on both sides of the border. I mean, nonstop for well over a decade of your life. And I know in recent years you've kind of scaled back. I mean, I know What was the last time you were in the car with Ramana? Last year, I believe, at LSPR, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was last year. So much fun.
Yeah. And I love him, and I feel like he's your first call. Anytime he's going to jump behind the wheel, I got to call Nathalie and get her behind the wheel, or behind, in the co-driver's seat. But I got to ask, like, if I've toyed with the idea of going stage rallying here and there, and renting a car from Dirtfish, who've talked about it, things like that. And I go, like, if I was going to do it, you're on the short list of my very first call. Like, I want you, riding with me. You know what I mean? Like, do you get a lot of calls? Because I mean, I look at your accomplishments. I went back over them today, and I kind of knew, but I'm like, how is your phone not blowing up off the hook with everybody wanting you in a seat?
Well, it's funny because I do get a lot of calls. I still get a lot of messages, whatever, some from people that I know and some from people that I don't know. But, back in, I think it was 2014 or 2015, I said, okay, no more, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear here, but no a-holes, no crashers, no newbies. Like, this was my list of rules, right? And that whittled it down like really a small list. But honestly, like, I do still get a lot of inquiries, whatever, and almost all of them I turn down. There's a few people that I know that if they contact me, it would be really hard for me to say no. But I have other things that I have to think of now, like my day job, like if it's not like I'm running a flower store that if I'm not there, if I can't make a decision, whatever, it's still gonna run pretty smoothly. You know, like as a financial planner, I'm using my brain and I'm constantly, you know, my decisions are imperative, let's say. So if something happens to me when I'm racing and you know, I'm like in a hospital for 2 weeks or whatever, like it could seriously affect my business and my clients. So I have to think of that side of things as well. And then, you know, there's a lot of things that come into play. So even somebody who might be on my short list,
Yeah.
I have still had to say no just because it doesn't work out or the timing doesn't work out or whatever. But then when I do an event and my name gets out in social media or whatever that I'm doing events, like it spurs more phone calls, you know, so I deal with those, but it's not that I love rallying and I'll always love rallying, but my heyday is over. Let's say.
Yeah.
I don't say that I'm retired because I'm not fully retired, but for the most part I pretty much have to turn things down.
Well, and it probably doing it, and I know Ramana, he's been highly successful, and he kind of comes in and does it, you know,
Yeah.
he does a rally here and there, and because he enjoys it. He wants to
Yeah.
get back behind the wheel, and I got a feeling like when you're approaching it the way you do, you probably really enjoy being in the car, whereas when you were doing, you know, a dozen, 15 events a year, like it got to be a grind, and sometimes it was a job. Like now there's probably an enjoyment factor, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I always enjoyed it, but the level of preparation and the work that had to go into racing back in my heyday, let's say, it's completely different. Like now, you know, like we might be 2 weeks prior to one rally, and I'd be still working feverishly on the next two rallies following that, you know, so it was just a constant grind. Like you say, there was always work to be done and, you know, keeping on track of stuff and whatever. But obviously I still loved it. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't have done it as much as I did. So there's always that wonderful component of loving what you're doing and being able to make some money out of it too, which was fantastic. But now when I do an event like I did last year with Ramana, it's purely for fun. Obviously, you know, we're still safe and try to go fast, but we're having fun, and that's the main point of it, you know. So it's completely different when I do a race now compared to when I did one 5 or 6 years ago. It's very different, but still a lot of fun, tons of fun.
Well, let's go back, you know, because I kind of want to go back to start and kind of, obviously, I think a lot of people know, you know, your gateway in, but let's go even further back. So you grew up in Canada. You moved to Australia, which I just learned doing my research for this. I had no idea you moved to Australia. You went to college, then you moved back to Canada, correct? And you took a job managing your brother's team? Is that how this worked?
Sort of. You had the right components there. So when I had graduated from my undergrad here in Canada, I was living and working in Toronto, and this was in 1999, and that's when my brother started rallying, and I had no clue what rally was back then. Like, I didn't even know that he knew what it was, but, you know, he saw it on TSN, and he's like, oh, cool, we have that here in Canada, and, like, within a month, he started rallying, and I didn't know what it was, but I knew that he was coming not too far. He was coming to Quebec for an event, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to go check it out. My parents decided that they were going to drive from Halifax and they were going to check out the same rally, and they didn't know what it was either. And we went, and we're all like, oh my God, this is really cool, you know. So within 2 weeks, I decided that I was going to start managing his team because he was doing all the events in Canada and all the events in the States in his first year of competition,
Wow.
which is pretty nuts, but whatever. That's what he wanted to do. So I said, okay, I'm gonna help him out. And that's how I got introduced to the whole sport, you know, and slowly, like, he had one co-driver in the States, Ben Bradley, and there was one event that Ben couldn't make, and I'm like, okay, I'll sit in there. And, you know, I took a little co-driving course, and off I went, and I wasn't very good. And then, but, you know, Pat was like, he was pretty good about it. And then about 2 months later, his Canadian co-driver, Ian McCurdy, he couldn't make one of the Canadian events. And I said, oh, okay, I'll sit in there too. And so that's how I started getting in the co-driver seat, was just from managing his team and just kind of sliding in because he needed someone. And so I did that with him for a little bit, and then I moved to Australia, and I did a few rallies while I was down there, and I said, I love it here. This is a great country, and, whatever. And I said, the only thing that would bring me back to Canada is if I got a really good, rally gig. And lo and behold, my brother called and he said, okay, do you want to be on Subaru Rally Team Canada with me? And I'm like, hell yeah. So I picked up all my stuff and I moved back to Canada, and then it went from there. So that was 2004, and that was ended up being a kick-ass year for us when we won the Canadian, U.S., and North American Championships. So that was the first Triple Crown right there with my brother in the first year. So, yeah, it started off well.
Well, and truthfully, that's a whole nother story. But I mean, your brother, to honestly go from really never even being to a rally to 5 years later, like being with, factory Subaru Canada and winning a Triple Crown, like that's crazy. That you were a part of that ride with him. But I mean, that's a very fast. I mean, normally people take some 4 or 5 years to figure out how to drive a car properly. Like that's a crazy career arc there, for both of you.
Yeah, like Pat. So Pat is one of those guys that, it doesn't matter what it is, whatever he puts his mind to, like he is, going to aim for the top. And he's a really smart guy. He's brilliant, and he decided that this is what he wants to do, and he put all of his effort into it, and he was really good. He had a lot of talent, and he went up the ranks really quickly. So that's awesome. But then when I came on, he was already light years ahead of me where he needed me to be. And so he was pretty hard on me when I first started, like brothers and sisters are, and then, but the good thing is, and I give him kudos to this, because he was so hard on me, I had to, become good at what I was doing really fast, because if I wasn't, then I knew I was going to be out of the car. So it was the pressure, and I guess maybe the competitiveness in both of us and whatever, but it worked out really well. We had a good ride together.
Yeah. Well, and as all this is going on, I know you'd said the only thing that would get you to move back from Australia to Canada was a good rally gig. I mean, obviously you're a financial planner now. Did you have a day job then when you were doing all this crazy stuff, cross-border racing in Canada, the United States? I mean, there was that whole decade there where you were just kind of insane traveling and that. Were you still working the day job, or were you strictly dedicated to rally?
Yeah. No, it wasn't lucrative enough for me to just rally, so I did have some part-time stuff on the side. And so my undergrad is in business and commerce, and so I've always been involved in the investment industry, since 1997, I guess it was, whatever. But I also got my postgrad degree in teaching, so I was a teacher as well. And it for a while there, like I was doing 4 jobs. The main one was co-driving, and so that was my number one, in terms of schedule and whatever. And then working around that, I was doing some substitute teaching in French here in Halifax, and then I was also working for my father's financial planning business, and I was also translating press releases for Motorsports from French to English. So these 4 jobs I had all worked really well around each other, and I never got bored. I was always doing something different, but it just worked really well. And so I'm lucky in the sense that I was able to do all that and do what I wanted to do, my passion, which is rallying, and still make ends meet by doing all these other things too. So I was lucky. Not everyone can do that. So
no. And I kind of I feel like this period, and I don't want to call it the golden era of rally in North America, because I think that's discrediting a lot of guys like John Buffum and people like that in the past.
Right.
So I want to be careful with the way I word things, but there was an era of rally in the United States and Canada and a lot of it was when the action sports people, Pastrana came in and Dave Mira, and obviously you had the factory teams in Canada, here in the States, and X Games got involved. You're able to do X Games a couple of times. But, I mean, do you feel fortunate? Like, there was just that era there where rally became really almost mainstream, in North America. And I know it has been in Canada, and you guys have had a great television package up there. But here in the States, I mean, you were a part of that. And I really, it's hard to replicate it. I mean, it was on TV a lot and things like that. I mean, do you feel fortunate to be a part of that and been able to do X Games? Because, like, I don't see that changing in the next decade. And I look back previously, and it just wasn't there, but you were a part of that, I don't want to say golden era, but that special era of rally here in North America.
Yeah, it was really cool to be a part of, for sure. And I think it was just before social media really caught on. Now everything is, social media, it's all online and whatever. But just prior to that, like you said, there were the amazing TV packages in Canada. We had a great TV show that was year after year after year. And of course, they tried in the States as well on ESPN and whatever. I was involved in that too. And with X Games and everything, it was gaining that momentum, in the average person's home, and more people were, knew what rally was. It was becoming a bit more mainstream, like you say. But now it's different in the sense that, there's still a lot of exposure, but it's not, you're not necessarily seeing it on the ESPNs and the TSNs and RDS and whatever. It's just a whole different outlet. So for me to be part of both in front of the camera and behind the camera on both sides of the border, it was just, it was amazing. And I'm glad that I was able to be part of that. And like you said, with Travis and Dave and Ken Block too, they all kind of came in around the same time. And it was this injection of a different kind of life into the sport that we didn't necessarily have before. So it was pretty cool to be around for all that. And it's different than how it is now. I'm so glad that I was part of it then. And I also think sometimes when I look at social media and how things get out now, it just seems, so much easier to just post it as opposed to what we had to go through back then. But yeah, no, I mean, it was really cool to be a part of, and I know what you mean about the golden years, and I agree with you. We can't take away from some of the other big names like Buffum and whatever, but it was a special time, that's for sure.
Yeah. Wait, how did the whole TV host thing come in? Because you were doing that on both sides of the border, and I know how did that pop up? Obviously we know you can talk well. You can both speak French and English. Like, how did that pop up? Because that was an awesome opportunity. You've done a lot of television work.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I'm just trying to think of how it started. I mean, it's all thanks to Lawrence Partington, actually, at TV To Go here in Canada. He was the producer for the show for both the French show on RDS and the English show on TSN, and he asked me if I wanted to be a part of it, and then he ended up also producing the show that was showing on ESPN as well. And that year, I wasn't in a car full time in the States. And so I was doing the ESPN show in the States with him. And prior to that, I had done the Canadian shows while competing. So I was, hopping out of a car. Somebody would be there waiting for me with a cameraman and microphone, whatever, and I would do my little blurb in English, and then I would change microphones and do my little blurb in French, and then I would go do an interview with someone and do an interview with somebody else, and then I might have had 2 minutes to go pee before we had to leave again in the rally car. So it was pretty hectic, but I enjoyed doing it all. And, I would do it again last year. I was part of the team that was doing the online webcast, I guess, of the Tall Pines Rally at the end of last year. And that was fun too. It was I was, an anchor in the studio, so I wasn't on site, but it was very different, still a lot of fun. And I don't, I wouldn't say no necessarily if that opportunity came up again, because I do enjoy it, and, it's a sport that I love and I know. But it was pretty cool to be part of it before, and, maybe one of those opportunities will come up again. We'll see.
Yeah. So I'm looking down this list of accomplishments, and I know probably one of my favorite things was a few years back. I know X Games named you one of the top 50 female action sports athletes of all time, and I know you and Chrissy Beavis were both on that list, and I thought that was huge for Rally to have, both of you on that list, and it really, I think your guys' accomplishments, it really was a statement and had people think again about Rally. But I'm looking down this, and, 47 national victories, at both sides of the border, 10-time North North American champ. I mean, 5 times in Canada, 3 times in the U.S., 2-time Triple Crown. I mean, kind of take us through some marquee moments that stick out in your mind, because this is a lot of accomplishments, and I don't want to go rally by rally, but there's got to be a few battles or moments that stick out in your head that were like, some of your favorites.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and thanks for naming all those, by the way, all those accomplishments. I forget about some of them sometimes, so it's nice to hear when somebody else says them, because I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. But for sure, the X Games list, that was pretty cool, and for Chrissy and I to both be listed there, it was nice. I enjoyed that. I can't remember how many years ago that was now, but it was pretty cool for them to include rally on that list, because it's not as common as a lot of the other sports that the athletes are from. But yeah, for sure, I did enjoy that. In terms of things that stick out, somebody asked me this not too long ago, and I said that, winning the Triple Crown is probably the toughest thing, because we all know how hard it is to win one championship. And, like for people that don't know rally, it's not like you win one event and win the championship. You accumulate points throughout the season. And so in order to win a title, to win a championship in 1 year, you have to be pretty consistent throughout the whole year in order to get as many points. And so to win one title in a year is tough enough, as we know. But then the Triple Crown, which is winning the North American, the Canadian, and the U.S., all 3 titles in the same year, that's pretty tough. And so when Pat and I did that in 2004, it was the first time that had ever happened. And so that was really cool, like making history. And then in 2010, Antoine and I repeated it. So those were both really tough things to accomplish, and I'll probably name the Triple Crown winning as a definite highlight. But if I had to go back and decide which rallies were stand out in terms of, yeah, that was sweet, it would have been back in 2005. I was competing with my brother. We were a privateer team, and we were competing in the States against Stig Blomqvist. And Stig, who, he's amazing world champion, like Stig is a big name in the world of rally. And he was competing over in the States. And it came down to, we're at the Colorado COG rally, obviously in Colorado. And on the last stage, we were a couple seconds back from him, and what's funny is that we're actually competing using his used tires. So they had a team over from the UK, and they had a much bigger budget than we did. And so my brother was buying their used tires, and we were competing on their used tires. And it was all down to the last stage. We were behind them by, a couple seconds. I can't remember how many exactly, but we had to push flat out, balls out in order, on this last stage. And I remember my brother, he was cutting the corners like you wouldn't believe. And I'm just thinking, I hope nothing's on the inside of these corners, because we were cutting them, Anyway, we end the stage, and we ended up beating them on the entire rally after 2 days by 0.4 seconds, and that was just like oh my God, it was a great moment. So yeah, that one definitely stands out for me.
Yeah, that's great. 0.4. And, and it's funny thing is, I think a lot of people, and I've got a lot of off-road listeners, and a couple of seconds is nothing. And actually in a lot of motorsports, a couple of seconds is nothing. But in rally, when you're at that level, I mean, to make up just a few seconds on a stage, I mean, we're talking, like you said, I mean, to win by that margin, though, I mean, that's like a NASCAR and IndyCar finish. That's crazy.
I know. And I'm not like, we won not just the stage by 0.4. I mean, we won by a few seconds, but the entire rally by 0.4 seconds. And it was just like, holy mama. It was a good win. That was a good feeling.
That's a blink. You know what I mean? That's a blink. That's
not even.
That's wow. That's one heck of a moment right there. And and it kind of goes back, and
Yeah.
that's one thing that I think is really key here. You talked about your brother and what he's accomplished, but you have been very, very successful, and a lot of it goes to, you've been with some of the best drivers in the world too, but you know, a lot of the programs, you've been on factory programs, but a lot of your victories and stuff came, when you guys were running on a smaller budget. And I think that's a credit to how well you are in the car as a co-driver, but also the drivers you surrounded yourself with, because you've done a whole lot with the teams and the partners you've been with in the car, but with a whole lot less than some of the competition you were competing against.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is, like I tell people all the time that in order for things to work, in order for you to win a championship, to win a rally, to win a stage, everything has to work, not just the driver being, game on and the co-driver being on point as well. The mechanics have to be awesome. The car itself has to be awesome. Like everything is like such a crazy amount of teamwork, and everything has to work in order for you to do well. And so I've been lucky enough that I've, like you said, I've had drives with and teams and seasons with amazing drivers, very talented drivers, which is awesome because you can't win without that. But we've had some fantastic people behind us, and some amazing mechanics who are able to MacGyver things when they need to be MacGyvered, or prep them properly, or do the all-nighters and everything. So we've had such a successful time for multiple reasons, so many different factors that go into it, and there's a lot of work that that the mechanics obviously do, and the drivers and co-drivers. There's so much preparation and late nights and all that jazz, but it's everything coming together that really makes a difference. And I've been lucky enough to be on teams that we all have this common goal, and we're all willing to have the sleepless nights and work our butts off in order to get there. So yeah, that's been pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, Nathalie, we are up against our we actually went over our 30-minute hard break, but the conversation was great. I feel like you and I could sit here probably for an hour or two and just catch up, just because it's been so long.
Probably.
But, I'm trying to think last time. I'm trying to think. It might have been New England Forest Rally a couple years ago when you were with Ramana in the factory Ford, the M Sport car they brought over maybe, and that's when Block and Higgins and Pastrana, and there was a big event there. It's probably one of the biggest North America, or the biggest U.S. rallies we've had in probably the last decade, I think. But I remember that. That might have been the last time we saw each other in person, maybe.
I think it might have been. Like, I was trying to think of this too, but I think that might have been it. And if it was, what a great rally to be at. There was so much competition there, like the cars and the teams and the it was just, what a great time. Like Raman and I had so much fun. Unfortunately, we had a little mishap on the first stage, and so that kind of took us out for for the first day, but we came back and we knew that the next day was going to be all about enjoying the car that we had, the M Sport. Like it was to be able to drive in a vehicle like that was amazing, and we had a lot of fun, and we set some really good times, and it was just really cool. So to be there, both for you and I, like you said, one of the hotly contested events of the decade, maybe. That was a great moment. I'm so glad that I was part of that.
Yeah. Well, here's hoping you and I run into each other a little bit more frequently than once every half decade.
I know.
Right?
It's been a while. We're due.
Yeah, we are definitely due. But Nathalie, always a pleasure. Congratulations once more on the Canadian Motorsports Hall of Fame. It's such an honor, and I know. Are they going to do? It's a virtual induction ceremony, correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, so normally what they do, so for class of 2020, they would normally have a ceremony at the 2021 the Toronto Auto Show obviously in Toronto in February, but because of COVID, our ceremony is going to be something virtual. I also believe in February, but then the following year, assuming things are back to normal, when they do the ceremony for class of 2021, they'll invite us from the class of 2020 to the ceremony as well. So we will hopefully still have something in person, but like a lot of other things, we're just going to have to settle for a virtual thing for now. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is, and I'm not going to complain about that.
Yeah, no, the honor is still all there, and All right. Well, I guess we will call this an end. But yeah, once again, congratulations, Natalie. It's been a whole lot of fun catching up on air.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate chatting with you again. It's been too long.